I'm Abu Bakr Shawky. I'm the writer and director of Yomeddine. It all started 10 years ago. I made a short documentary about the leper colony outside of Cairo, and it was a very small student project when I was studying in Egypt. And I heard a lot of stories about people being dropped off there as children and never seeing their parents again. And for me, that was first of all, it was a very interesting story, but I also thought it would be interesting to make a road movie about somebody who is cured from leprosy and he leaves the colony and travels across Egypt to confront his family and ask them why they never came back for him. It's a hybrid. It's a mix of both. So I would hear I'm making this documentary. I would hear these stories, and I would find a connection to these people and hear a lot of different details about their lives and what troubles them and what their hardships were. With that knowledge, I started writing a script about it. When I then went back to the colony to search for actors for a script, that script was already the story was already there, and I just needed someone to be able to interpret it, be able to perform the main character of Beshay, for example. By finding someone like Rodi Gemel, who's the main actor, he gave me a lot of details and a lot of things that I might not have been aware about, but he really added a lot to it. Not social criticism, but I wanted to show that we're not just one homogeneous block. That there's a lot of different diversities and different people. It's not just one thing that I guess people imagine when they think about Egypt or the Middle East. There is some diversity there, and in regards to there's not that many films that have a main character who is Christian, for example, right? So that was something that I felt there should be more of that. The boy, there's we never really say that he's Nubian. He is. They kind of, I think, the characters along the way, they kind of surmise or they kind of come up with the conclusion that he might be Nubian because they go through his records and they see that this might be him. But we never actually say that. For us, he's just like someone from the south, it really all goes back to this idea of identity and belonging, and what is your identity, and those are the themes I wanted to discuss. It was very interesting and it was very challenging. It was both rewarding and challenging at the same time. We first of all, I think they gave us a performance that I wouldn't have been able to get out of professional actors. At the same time, it took us a much longer time to be ready to get there. They both never stood in front of a camera. They had difficulties reading and writing, and these just made the process much longer in terms of preparation, but also in terms of shooting the film. And so it was a process that was, I guess, more arduous. It was not as straightforward as working with actors that are professional. But it also, the result of it was much more rewarding than if we had gone the other direction. They also live in different worlds. Rodi is from the leper colony, and Ahmed, who played Obama, is from downtown Cairo. I found them individually, and I started training with them individually for just acting rehearsals and acting exercises. And eventually I would put them together slowly until we kind of formed that same bond that was formed in the film. And we kind of tried to recreate that process before to make sure it's real. Ahmed is he lives in downtown Cairo. He lives with his parents. Rodi is from the leper colony, and there were some similarities to the real story. He also had lost his wife recently. He's obviously, he knows what it's like to live in a leper colony and live with that struggle, and with the you try to get the acceptance of society. I think one main difference was for him that he has a good relationship with his parents. Leper colonies are not like they were used to in the past. They're not prisons. You can come and go as you want. And he visits them a lot and he sees them. So that was like one of the bigger differences between, the real Beshay and Rodi. Yes, it was screened there we had a really fantastic feedback. We went in initially not really knowing how people are going to react to it. There's a lot of parts of it, elements where, Egypt is a huge industry in terms of cinema, but also, in terms of independent films, they don't really run in theaters for a long time. Specifically if there's no stars in it, specifically if it's a first-time director that nobody knows. So we went in with the expectation that we might be in there for a week. And we ended up being there for 2 months, and it just happened that, it was just an interesting word of mouth that happened because we didn't even have, money to put up big billboards in the streets. Yeah, because I think there's this stigma about the festival films and films for theaters, which I think is it's a false assumption. I think there are good films and bad films, and if a film does good in a festival, that should actually mean it should do well in theaters as well. I've always felt that, when we were making this film, it's a film that I wanted to see in theaters. It's a film that I felt very passionate about because I felt that we need to see a film like that, and I think that's what kept us going, and very happy to be eventually able to do that now. I don't think you will ever reach a maturity until you die, in that sense as a filmmaker. It's an ongoing learning process, and you'll constantly be learning. Even when I'm in my 80s, if I reach that, age, you'll still be learning things and try to figure out a way to tell your story. So it's really very specific for each film. But also I think that, we weren't trying to actively show a bad side of Egypt as much as we're trying to show a different side of Egypt. And the side that we're showing is not bad. The characters in it are content. And I think that very often people think we're showing misery, whereas, it might be misery to us, but to them this is life. What I noticed with my interactions with people in the colony, and then specifically with Rodi, is that he is happy in his life. He's content with what he has. He's made peace with it, and he's trying to live. And this idea of false pity that usually that comes from us. It comes from the outside. And it's almost a little belittling because they just want to, be regarded as anyone else, and not be, constantly have someone point out that they're different in any way. Whereas it feels like very often people try to do that. And that's why, I wanted the film to be an approach more of how does he see the world as opposed to how does the world see him. There's no specifics, but I'm always really fascinated by films that are about underdogs trying to make it in the world. Those are films that I feel, are much more rewarding when you see them, and you really end up rooting for, someone that you feel connected to because it's such a universal trait. Everyone who's struggling is an underdog. So yeah, I hope, and it doesn't have to. Like I said, it's a very universal sentiment, and it doesn't have to be in Egypt, but wherever the next big story is, I would love to be there. Thank you.